I kind of fell into German. So German was the second foreign language I was exposed to. The first one was actually French. So I'm from South Louisiana, and my great-grandmother and an aunt of mine spoke French when I was growing up. And so that was the very first non-English language that I was exposed to, and found it fascinating. But then I was introduced to a woman who worked with my mother, who was from Germany, and she started teaching me a bit of German, and I learned the numbers, and I learned how to say "How are you?" And I found it fascinating. And when I got to high school, unfortunately, they didn't teach German, so I had to wait until I got to college, and I double majored in Spanish and German, and loved them both, and took a few other languages while I was there. So I guess I found my way to German just through language study in general, right? And I think I'm kind of a language geek, right? I really, it's always been fun for me to try to learn new languages. And so German just happened to be the one that I really kind of took to, and went on to do initially a master's in Spanish, and then took some time off, tried to work outside of academia, to do other things, see the world a little bit, and came back and decided, well, let me do some graduate work in German, and found a really good department. I went to UT Austin for my graduate work, for my doctoral work. Really liked it there, loved the department. They had, it's a Germanic Studies department, so they offered, in addition to German, they offered Dutch, Swedish, Danish, Yiddish for a while, although that unfortunately got canceled, and Norwegian, right? So the full range of Germanic languages, and it was a great place to be, being able to talk to a 20th century German film specialist and a medieval Scandinavianist in the same conversation was just really cool. So I really liked that. That was really enjoyable, and fell in love with teaching. I think I fell in love with that moment in beginning level German, or beginning level any language really, where a student puts together his or her first sentence and it works, right? There's this moment in beginning level language where you see this click, where a student, for example, is asking her partner about, to share the homework or something like that, and asks for it in German or in the language, and it works. It actually elicits the sentence elicits the response from the other person that you wanted, and to see that moment is really kind of, there's something very special about it, right? And I think I loved being part of that. I loved facilitating that. I loved helping students get to this moment where they could say something and get something done with it, right? Where they could say, could you pass me the salt or something like that, and not just get blank stares, but actually get the salt, right? And there's a very special moment there for a student when they realize that they can do that in a language that's not English, right? For English-speaking students. So that's kind of how I found my way to language teaching, and German just happens to be the one that I have the most experience with, and that I kind of fell into in a way, and I love it. But it could have been. I like to think it could have been another language. I could have stayed in the Spanish masters just as well if I decided not to take some time off. But and I think I would have loved it just as much. But yeah. So. To grow up or to be exposed to other languages is incredibly important, and it's something that I think. People in foreign languages, literatures, or world languages and cultures, as will be called, I think, starting next year. I think that that's something that we really strive to do, knowing that in order to teach things like social justice, in order to teach cultural awareness, we have to encourage students to be aware of the fact that English is not the only language that you can communicate in, and to make them aware of the incredible privilege that comes along with speaking English, right, as a native language in particular. But also to make them sensitive, to kind of cultivate a sensitivity in them to the fact that, well, not everyone will speak English. Sometimes people just flat out refuse to speak English, and that's a good thing, right? So I think that I connect very personally to that, growing up in a kind of environment where a bit of French was spoken, And then when I was in high school, I got a job at a Cuban restaurant, and so I was surrounded by Spanish, and that was really wonderful. And then I went to Germany, and I was surrounded by yet another language, right? And I've always found that exciting, right? I mean, you get past that initial kind of moment of fear of being thrown into a linguistic environment where you can't speak with anyone. And after a while, I think students can learn to embrace that, and embrace the ambiguity, embrace the fact that they can't know everything. And there's a valuable lesson in that, right? And then just really kind of revel in it, revel in this maybe not knowing, but then when you find out, there's this moment of satisfaction. Again, it comes back to this moment in beginning level German or beginning level Chinese or beginning level any language where you say something and it works. And so being immersed in a language or being surrounded by a language that's not your own language can be just this wonderful experience of kind of like being a child again, where you kind of constantly in this situation where you can try out these things and really experiment with the words and experiment with the grammar, and then all of a sudden you get what you want, right? And it's just like this moment of yay, I did it, I win, you know. It's kind of this is just a wonderful kind of thing to it, to learning a language and being in an environment where the dominant language is not your native language, and so yeah. It's different. It is different, but it's not so different. I mean, Germany and I'd say Western Europe in general and the United States share a whole lot. You know, I mean, there are a lot of things that are really very, very similar. But you know, so I was thinking about that, and then I was thinking back to my first moment in Germany when I had this crisis of, oh God, I'm surrounded by this language that I don't speak so well yet, and this very different culture and different food and different everything, right? And I was thinking back to that when I was trying to think of a response to this question, and I thought, you know, it's not all that different, but I wonder if that doesn't make it extra valuable in a way, right? As a study abroad experience, and I think no matter where you study abroad, it's really valuable. But there's this way in which being in a place that's not so different maybe forced me to question certain assumptions that I had, because I was able to make more direct comparisons, right? So for example, I spent some time in Japan too, in the time that I took off after my Spanish masters. And Japan is just so incredibly different, right? In very, very interesting ways. But it's different to the point where it was difficult for me to kind of reflect back on my experience as an American. Or my experience as, you know, let's say just a white male American who was raised Catholic and these kinds of things, right? I mean, so all these kinds of things that I found a few more cultural touchstones in Germany, and this is, you know, I'm speaking for myself from my own experience, that allowed me to reflect a bit more on my kind of position in the world as an American, right? And so I think that. Yeah, I can't say it's so very different, you know, but it's different enough and similar enough to be this kind of it's kind of just different enough to you know, like when you put a pencil into a glass of water and you see it just skewed a little bit, right? It's kind of like that if I'm going to compare it to something, right? It's kind of this sense of, you know, I'm comfortable until I start thinking about it, and then I'm not, right? But then I'm comfortable again, and then, you know, it's an interesting experience. So, if that makes any sense at all. I teach upper division German courses, courses on German literature and culture. So next fall I'll be teaching a course on Grimm's fairy tales, which I'm really looking forward to, because I think we'll watch some Grimm. You know, because we're going to look at adaptations too of the fairy tales. So I think we'll watch some of the show that's filmed in Portland, just to kind of bring students in and you know, help them connect with the original fairy tales a little better. This term I'm teaching a course on German culture, and we're using contemporary news media as the way in. And then this year I've also taught the third year German sequence, right? Which, you know, we have two tracks. We have a German for the professions track, and then we've got a German kind of culture / literature / history track. And so I've been teaching the culture / history / literature track this year, and it's been a lot of fun. I also teach some courses in women, gender, and sexuality studies. So in the winter I taught a course on men and masculinities, looking at the way that masculinity is constructed and represented in the media and in film specifically. And that was really a lot of fun, and I hope to do that again next year. And in the fall, I'm teaching a course, co-teaching with my German colleague, Sebastian Heiduschka, on queer films and queer film festivals, right? And we'll, with the students, we'll organize the first LGBTQ film festival in Corvallis, which should be a whole lot of fun. So, you know, if you haven't signed up for it yet, do, because it's going to be great. It takes so long before, coming back to this experience of making a perfect sentence, it takes so long to make a perfect sentence that goes beyond "my name is," right? Because as soon as you want something else, you need this case, and then as soon as you want to give something to somebody, then you need this case, and you know, so it can be a really frustrating language in the beginning, admittedly. But again, it's just that moment when you know, it's that much more satisfying when you get to that point where you're like, all right, I did it. I got the accusative case down, and I can use it, and you know, I can order coffee, and I can give my mother flowers, and I can do all of these things in German now, and that's really wonderful. So, but Catherine and Amanda are both really good at just encouraging the students, getting them to come out of themselves. I think that's kind of German into English, and speak in German, and really just try things out, because that's I think the most successful language learners are usually the ones who aren't afraid to try things out, who just jump right in head first and start speaking. And those are always the ones who excel. I think there is a perception that German's this insanely difficult language. And you know, it is difficult. It's not, I'm not gonna lie, but every language is. I don't think learning any language is an easy undertaking. It takes time, it takes commitment, and it takes some, you know, lonely nights at home studying vocabulary words. I mean, it's just the way it works. But the payoff in the end is so wonderful. It's so great. I think that it's worth anyone's time to learn language, and German specifically. I think the community that students find themselves in. I think we make a strong commitment to our students, to helping them out, to helping them both fulfill their kind of professional and personal goals during their time here at OSU, and you know, learn another language, learn about these issues of you know, language awareness, cultural awareness, critical media literacy, and all these kinds of things that we're really emphasizing in the program. But then also kind of encouraging them to do outreach, to do service. All of our German courses have an outreach and service component, and they're required, students are required to engage in the community. So I think that's a really important component, because it connects the students to a community, right? And so I think a lot of our German students, if they choose, have access to this really dynamic community in Corvallis, right? Through Sophie Scholl Schule, right? Where they can work with children, through the German Film Festival, through Kaffeestunde and Stammtisch, and now a couple of German students have come to me to start a German club, which we used to have a few years ago, but it kind of fell off the map, and now these students are interested in reviving it, and I'm really excited about it, because it's going to be an organization that welcomes not only students who are taking German, but just students who are interested in German-speaking cultures, or interested in Europe and the EU, and who would like to do excursions to other parts. You know, so we're planning an excursion to Mount Angel Oktoberfest in September, which will be a lot of fun. To Portland, right? They have a Maifest in Portland every spring, so we're planning those kinds of things. And so I think that that's one of the things that makes us unique, is this kind of sense of community that we're trying to build. Yeah, just come talk to us. I think we all, in the German section, we're all very open just to talking. Come meet us for a coffee. I'm always willing to talk to students. My office is always open. I've tried to set it up where I've got a nice comfy couch so you can come in and just talk and just ask. You know, we've got brochures, we've got information. We can hook you up with any internship or study abroad opportunity you're interested in to kind of explore your professional goals. But yeah, just come talk to us. I think all of us would be very happy just to sit down and chat and you know, share what we're interested in and what we love, and you know, talk about Berlin, talk about Germany in general. You know, so yeah, come talk to us.